Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Maureen Donahue Krause, President and CEO of the Detroit Regional Partnership. Welcome to our annual meeting. You've chosen to join the breakout session on really what the future of banking and finance looks like for 2021 with Gary Torgow, who is the Executive Chairman of TCF Bank and the Chemical Finance Corporation. Before I introduce Gary, I want to remind all of you that the chat box is open. So this is really an interactive presentation. If you have questions for Gary, please ask them and we will get to them time permitting throughout this 27 minutes. I'll give you some instructions at the end on how to move then to the keynote address. But for now, let me introduce Gary Torgow to you. Gary is a true community leader, but most importantly, he has successfully started three very important businesses, from the Sterling Group to Talmer Bank and now TCF. And we'll talk a little bit about where TCF is going as well. Gary serves on many important boards in the Detroit region, including DTE, Blue Cross Blue Shield, the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit, the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, among others. He's been a volunteer for the Michigan Civil Rights Commission and the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. He's won numerous awards in his career, including the Frank Wetzman Leadership Award from the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit, the NAACP's Fannie Lou Hamer Keeping the Spirit Moving Award, and has also won the Wayne State University Law School Distinguished Alumni Award. Most importantly for us, Gary serves on the board of the Detroit Regional Partnership, and we are so grateful for his time and his energy and his thought leadership in guiding us. Gary, welcome. I'm going to start with the first question for you. I have a couple, and we'll hopefully get to some from the audience as well. So, Gary, TCF Bank has had a pretty interesting history. You started out with the smallest bank in Michigan, First Michigan Bank in Troy, and in the past year, TCF has merged, or is in the process of merging, with Huntington Bank, which will make it the 10th largest bank in the United States. That's quite a journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and how your commitment to the Detroit region has always been an important part of your successful growth?
First, good morning, Maureen, and thank you for everything you're doing for the region, and great to have you, and thanks for inviting me. So yes, we've had quite a change since the very first bank we bought, which was in 2009. My business partner, Dave Provost, and I took friendly control of a little tiny bank here in Troy, Michigan, called First Michigan. It was the smallest bank in the United States. I don't think anybody had ever heard of it. We had about $3 million in loans. And it was our plan to just very slowly grow a little bank into a bigger and bigger bank, but nowhere near where we are today. In that time, in 2009, which was the significant time of recession, there was tremendous stress on the banks and on the system. And probably for the first time since the Great Depression, the United States was failing banks all over the country. It was a time of tremendous concern, and Michigan was particularly impacted. If you recall, I think in that year we lost 750,000 manufacturing jobs, and nobody was investing in Michigan. Shortly after we took friendly control of First Michigan, we had 7 colleagues, including myself. We got a call from the FDIC asking us if we wanted to bid on what turned out to be the largest failed bank in the United States, in Michigan at that time. It was a bank in Port Huron. And we said, sure, we'd love to do it. Tell us how to do it. And they said, well, all you need is $200 million. It's a $2 billion bank. You have to infuse $200 million into the enterprise. And if you do, and you can certainly have the right to bid, it's a sealed bid. And we'd be very happy for you to participate. We did not have $200 million, and there wasn't $200 million available in Michigan. And so we went to the capital markets, and we were just in the right place at the right time. Our opportunity presented itself. A gentleman by the name of Wilbur Ross, who just recently completed his term as Commerce Secretary, took an interest in us and ultimately put $100 million into our bank. and we raised $400 million. We came back to Michigan with it, and we bid on that failed bank. And as I said, we were in the right place at the right time, and we won that bid. And we went from a $10 million bank to a $2 billion bank, from 7 colleagues to over 350, from one little tiny branch in Troy that I could barely find, to 30 branches, and we were off on the road. Shortly after that, the FDIC continued to fail banks in Michigan. We continued to bid. And in the end, I think we bought the most failed and distressed assets in the United States. We ended up with 12 transactions, bringing us to the place where we were ready to do a regular old deal, not just the distressed asset deal. And we merged with a bank called Chemical in Midland, Michigan. And that merger was really two healthy banks. We were Talmer, they were Chemical, and it was a good, healthy transaction. Just as an aside, the reason we became Talmer Bank and we changed from First Michigan was shortly after we bought our first failed bank, we were sued by a local credit union who felt we were confusing the marketplace with our name. And so we had to choose a new name, and we ended up choosing Talmer, which was a construct of my partner, Dave, my business partner, Dave Provost's grandfather, John Ness Talmadge II, and my grandfather, Manuel Merzon. Both had passed, never had met each other. And we put their pictures up on our wall. We called it Talmer Bank, and people thought we were a 100-year-old bank. We merged with Chemical. That turned out to be a very successful merger. And one really remarkable thing happened. During the time that we did the merger, the city of Detroit made a decision to RFP their banking services. We bid on that, and we promised if we won their banking services, we would move our headquarters to Detroit, Michigan. It was the first time a headquarters would be placed in Detroit since Comerica left in 2007. We won that bid, and we committed to move our headquarters to Detroit. And we promised a new headquarter building, which is right now in the process of being built. It's on the corner of Elizabeth and Woodward. You could drive by and see the signs. We're about 8 of the 20 stories. We're getting there, and in about 14 months, we hope to have it completed. After that transaction, we then were fortunate enough to merge with a wonderful bank in Minneapolis called TCF. Their headquarters were in Minneapolis, but they agreed if we gave up the name, which we were willing to do, we gave up the name Chemical, we would take the name TCF, they would move their headquarters with us to Detroit. And at that point, we became a $50 billion bank, and we really became Detroit's hometown bank. I've been in Detroit my whole career. Detroit was a really important part of what I saw as the success that we had shared. I think Detroit really helped us tremendously. I went to school here. I went to law school here. And Detroit was always in our vision as a place that we wanted to continue to grow. The city was tremendously helpful, the mayor, Mayor Duggan, and others to really welcome us to become the hometown bank. And then, as you mentioned at the beginning of the hour, we were very fortunate. We got contacted by Steve Steinhauer, the CEO of Huntington Bank, and as now everybody knows, we've agreed to a merger with Huntington Bank. We'll be a $170 billion bank, the 10th or 11th largest in the United States. For me and for us, it's just remarkable. And I really think the success is due to the opportunity that Michigan and Detroit gave us, to give us a place, a home, an opportunity to really be able to thrive, to serve, and to do the things that we really believed in. When we were starting the bank originally, one of our goals was to be a charitable civic force in the city of Detroit and in Michigan. Detroit's a wonderful, wonderful place. Maureen, I know you're busy trying to get more companies to come to Michigan, and we're a tremendous booster. One final point is that when we were negotiating the transaction with Huntington, we explained to Steve Steinhauer, who was headquartered in Columbus, that we could not move our headquarters out of Detroit. We had made a huge commitment. We had made a commitment to the people of Detroit, to the citizens, to the neighborhoods. And Steve, I think with great foresight, agreed as our new partner to dual headquarters bank both in Detroit and in Columbus. And that building that we're building that we were originally going to put 300 or 400 people in is now going to have 1,000 strong. And Detroit's going to be the great beneficiary of this wonderful transaction. 60% of all the bank's activities will be in Detroit. 40% will be in Columbus. We're hoping that a great deal of our team will remain with us, and we're really excited about the opportunity. Detroit's a wonderful place to work, and Michigan is a great place to be in banking business today and in commerce today.
Gary, your journey and your leadership really parallel the growth trajectory that we've seen in our region, and you've been there every step of the way, which we so appreciate it. But when you started in 2009, we were both chatting the other day how that Great Recession was pretty rock bottom for our city and for our region and for our state, but it came through really well. What do you see as the parallels of that time in the Great Recession to the past year when we've been under a pandemic induced recession? What are some parallels and what are some lessons learned last time that we can be using right now?
That's a great question. So in 2009 and in the COVID-19 pandemic, both of these events created tremendous stress on banks and on the system, the economic system of America. The Great Recession in 08 and 09 and its impact were wide-ranging, and they created deep impact in every industry of the country. But the core needs in our communities for a strong financial services companies and providers and the mission really didn't change, and it really wasn't different between those two times. Businesses and consumers still need strong lending support from business partners and from banking. You know, as everybody knows, that banks in so many ways drive the economy of the country. They provide the loans that allow people to buy homes, to secure businesses, to invest in the economy. And I think the big difference today is that maybe the most striking difficulty that we've faced in the COVID-19 pandemic is that over 95% of all American firms, probably over 30 million companies, are small businesses. And COVID, I think, rendered about 30% of all small businesses non-operational. So small businesses, which I think about 55% of the workplace, were really, really strongly affected. For us and for the U.S. government, very wisely, I think put serious money into what they call their PPP loans in order to give small businesses the opportunity. Our bank did almost 20,000 loans for billions and billions of dollars. And in so many ways different than in 2009, that infusion of dollars was so significant. Now, a lot of small businesses are struggling, really struggling mightily. And it's really our job, and it's the job of the communities to do everything they can to help them come back alive as we conclude, we hope soon, the pandemic. I'll just tell you, Maureen, yesterday, my colleagues and I went on a little tour. We visited 5 small businesses in Detroit. We went to see the Grooming Shop, a company called Cuts Lounge. It's owned by Dante Williams. We went to Page's Bookshop in Grandmont, Rosedale. It's Susan Murphy's company. We went to a place called Spa Appeal. It's Wanda Bynum's company. We went to the Garden Bug. It's this little beautiful florist operation that is really, really a central feature of the Grandmont, Rosedale neighborhood. And we went to Sweet Potato Sensation, a place you gotta visit. Cassandra and Espy and Jennifer and their family, the Thomas family, have built a great company. They all held on during the pandemic. They got some loans. They took some opportunities. When we were approached by Wayne County, by the county executive, Warren Evans, and his team to create a small business fund, which we were so honored to be a part of. Basically zero interest, tiny little interest payments. We did hundreds and hundreds of loans. We did a lot of loan modifications, and all the banks did it, to modify companies' loans so they could live through this incredible pandemic. As you said this morning before we got on, we hope that people will have the opportunity for vaccines. We hope that companies will be able to come back. We need to see each other. The stress on not being at the office has really hit everybody really hard. But I think we've got an opportunity, and I think different than in 2009, I'm hopeful that this will not be a long-lasting struggle. I'm hoping that we will come out of this. I'm optimistic and hopeful that if the banks do the right things, if community or enterprises do the right things, if we assist our small businesses, we got a real opportunity to move forward in a great way.
No, you're so right, Gary. When people around the country ask me, well, how is Detroit, the region, Michigan going to come out of this current, economic malaise? I say, well, we actually had a little dress rehearsal during the Great Recession. And I think through the hard work of so many, including people like you, we were able to come out of it stronger. And so I think that gives us a little edge as we look for the future on what are we going to do as a region, as a state, as a city. What are we going to do to come out even quicker? Before I go to the next question, which really moves right into it, I want to remind people the chat is open. If you have any questions, I could ask Gary questions for hours. We don't have hours, but in fairness to the audience, happy to take yours as well. So I want to talk about being a community leader and all the work that you have led for Talmer and TCF and beyond. TCF has always had a strong commitment to racial equity and diversity issues, ranging from your commitment to helping underserved populations, adopting neighborhoods in the city, to the $1 billion fund that was established to support women and minority-owned businesses. Gary, if you could just talk a little bit about this commitment, how things are going, and where are your efforts headed?
Great question. And yes, that's true. I think that we recognize more and more that the things that are troubling our world are so local and are such an opportunity for us to do our part to fix. Just after the George Floyd murder, the Mayor Duggan, and Reverend Wendell Anthony from the NAACP called a press conference, and they asked significant companies, great leaders, to stand in front of a camera and talk about promises that they could make, to do everything they could to do what they could to end the systemic racism that is such a struggle. We live in Detroit. We know Detroit. We know how important the population of Detroit is and how much we have to do in order to secure that everybody is able to have an opportunity to take care of their families, to thrive, to have businesses, to grow economically. But it really takes a effort, not just from one company, but companies all across America, to do everything they can to change the system in a way that will repair some of the tragic issues that America has faced and still faces across the country. I was just talking on one of our company chats about a woman named Ruth King, who wrote a fabulous book on racism, and she characterized racism as a heart disease. It's not just a physical disease, it's a spiritual disease. It's an opportunity for us to do things. So in that press conference, the mayor and Reverend Anthony challenged companies to do what they could. A couple years before that, Mayor Duggan had put us in a car and drove us to a few neighborhoods when we were Talmer and said, is there something that you would be willing to contribute to a neighborhood to help us grow a particular neighborhood? We were chosen to be partners with Marygrove College. And we were able to put $1 million in homes in those neighborhoods to fix them up and to help people to be able to buy these beautiful housing stock homes in that area. I remember the very first closing we did in our $1 million program was to a woman. I went to the closing and I asked her, why did you move to Marygrove? And she said, I grew up in the house next door and my parents still live there. And I wanted to come back to this neighborhood. And this is an opportunity for us to do it. So when we stood up in that press conference, we made commitments. We promised to do what we could as an enterprise. And one of the things that our team decided to do, I have such great pride and such a great appreciation for the TCF team that made a decision that we were going to announce a $1 billion commitment. We're a $50 billion commitment, so that was large for us. And that commitment was to really find ways to do loans for areas of economy that really weren't able to access the banking system as strongly. So we put a $1 billion program together to allow for loans for small minority businesses, women-owned businesses, and to really see if we could jumpstart that loan program. Very interestingly, we're merging with Huntington Bank. About a week or two after we made this big press conference, Huntington Bank, before we knew we were going to be their merger partner, announced a $20 billion program across their enterprise. This is the place that banks need to invest. It is the bank's obligation to get people to be able to buy homes, to get people to invest in businesses. Maureen, I'll tell you a shocking statistic. Back in, I think it was 2000 and maybe 18 or 19, we went as a team, Detroit, led by Mike Duggan, to the Clinton Global Initiative to talk about mortgages. A shocking statistic in that year that we went, only 540 people were able to get a mortgage in the whole city of Detroit. We have a population of, I don't know, 600,000 or 700,000 people, and only 500 people could get mortgages. That was a systemic problem that needed to be corrected. So it's really the banks that have the opportunity to give customers that chance to live the American dream, to buy a house and a car. And that was what we felt right during that press conference and after that was our obligation. And we're going to do more and more. Our investment in Detroit, our investment in the neighborhoods. I was privileged to chair the Strategic Neighborhood Fund for the mayor, along with Steve Steinauer and along with Dan Lepp and others, to be able to bring companies to a partnership with neighborhoods. We got Grandmont Rosedale, one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in Detroit, and put millions and millions of dollars in because it's our obligation. And we felt that draw and that need. We've developed wonderful relationships in Grandmont Rosedale. Some of those businesses I told you about are in that neighborhood. We love the opportunity to be able to use our investment dollars, our charitable dollars, and our civic opportunities to really strengthen the community. And I think, Maureen, if we do that, it's going to encourage other companies to come to Michigan because they're going to see this broad, really large opportunity that each company could do together. I'm so proud of the other banks. I don't see them as competition. They joined with us to put $5 million each. Flagstar did it. Other companies, JP Morgan, they stepped up to the table to really partner up in Detroit. And I think it's unusual in the country, but somehow everybody's got a focus, and that focus is very much what created the DRP. I think Jerry Anderson and his vision of helping to create that has really shown an interest in growing Michigan and growing Detroit.
No, you're absolutely right. When we talk to companies, we can tell them the story, but they do their own homework. And when they see the collaboration that happens, whether it's among business leadership, bank leadership, when they see how in you are, and TCF has been, time, talent, and treasure, that says a lot about the people here and their commitment to improvement. And that's where businesses want to invest. So it's so important that we share that story. So Gary, we have a couple of minutes left, and I want to ask you a question that a lot of people want to know. Tell us about what is your vision for 2021? Where do you see us going? Where do you see this region having opportunity, and what are some of our challenges that we need to overcome? I suspect it's going to be an optimistic answer, but tell us your feedback on what does 2021 look like to Gary Torgow?
So I am bullish for the future of Detroit. I'm bullish for the future of the country. America is one of the most remarkable countries in the history of the world. They've faced incredible challenges. We still face incredible challenges, but we have a spirit. We have I think, as you said, a collaboration, not just banks, companies all over the country. I think both in the second half of this year and in the years to come, we are going to see us get back on the right track. We're going to combat the health effects of the pandemic. I think the increased vaccinations are going to support our communities and our country. And I think increasingly businesses are going to come back in many ways as usual, and in some ways not as usual, which I think is a really good thing. We've learned so many lessons through this pandemic. There are people working at home. Maybe it's good for some people to work at home, to be by their families, to let their families see the kind of work they're doing. Many are going to come back to work, but some are not. I think we've learned to support each other in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before. This was a common enemy, an enemy that the whole world was facing. It wasn't just one terrible event in one country. This was an event that affected every one of us, and we learned to create opportunity to help each other in a way that I don't think we've ever seen. And I think Detroit has proven that it's a great place to live. Look what's going on in Detroit. Look at the COVID testing that the city accomplished. Look at the vaccinations that are going on in Detroit. Look at the opportunity. Look at what the Detroit City Council and the mayor have created in terms of a verve to try and fix so many of the issues that Detroit faces since we came out of bankruptcy. It's a great place to live, a great place to work, and a great place to invest in. We're at TCF. We recently renamed the main convention center the TCF Center. And I've seen a lot of changes over COVID-19. We're so proud to be able to have put our name on that, and it's soon going to be Huntington's name. We're so proud of the sort of taking away the history of what Cobo stood for, the name Cobo stood for, the ill effects of Black Bottom, and really turning it into what I think is a very positive story for Detroit. We're building a headquarters, as I said, on the corner of Woodward and Elizabeth. There hasn't been a banking headquarters building a building of that size in so many years. And I think it should prove to the community that we believe in Detroit and we believe in what we're doing. I think we're going to get past the health issues. I think the future of Detroit is very bright. Detroit has been through great adversity. I see the resiliency, the opportunity, the warmth and the love and the camaraderie, and I hope that it will boost us and push us into 2021 and beyond with great hopes and great opportunity. And I know, Maureen, you're going to bring more companies to Michigan, and they're going to thank you for it. Maybe it's going to take a little bit of prodding and a little pushing, but look at all that you've done, even in this COVID-19 remarkable period. We're going to join with you. We're going to join with all the companies. I know there's some companies listening today. We're ready to join hands. We don't see it as competition. We see it as a friendly opportunity to be great partners in the resurgence of what I hope will be a 2021 and beyond success for our country.
Gary, truly, all I can say is thank you for your words, for your leadership, for your partnership. He's one of our ambassadors, and we have many, and so appreciate hearing your story and your insight. This time went by very fast. As I mentioned, we could ask Gary a lot more questions, but it's time to wrap up and move into our breakout session. So once again, Gary, thank you. It's pretty